ready to build resiliency, create a healthy lifestyle, and overcome adversity with a warrior mindset. This is Define the Fight with Mariah Prussia.
Hey everyone, welcome to this morning, this Monday. The sun is shining, life is good. And if it's not shining where you are at, you know what? It's all about internal shine, and let's make sure that we bring that today. I am honored to have a special guest today who understands light, understands energy, but then also is huge in regards to faith. I want to make sure that we have thoughts and prayers that go out to Charlie Kirk and his family, who was definitely a leader in faith and helped individuals far more than he could even fathom in regards to his impact. So again, thoughts and prayers go out to Charlie Kirk and his family. Today we have an unbelievable guest. David Schmidt is the founder, chairman of the board, and inventor of LifeWave technology. He is also an innovator, entrepreneur, faith-driven man who continues to raise the bar on research and patent development. Globally, David holds 94 issued patents with an unlimited amount to be written. In addition, David has over 70 issued patents alone in the field of regenerative sciences and technology. You know, I want to save so much more. I mean, you have so many different things out there, David, but I want to state this to you. I listened to you at the last conference, and it was beautifully stated on how you receive your downloads through prayer. You give grace, you give gratitude, and you give acknowledgement to God. So thank you for doing that, David.
Oh, thank you, Mariah. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you for having me on. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, you know, I looked at all of the different things that you've created in your lifetime, and I have a feeling that you have only just begun, because when a person is driven and they want to help create change within the world and leave a positive impact, the sky literally is the limit. So I want to talk about a few different components, because we know in the health and wellness industry, light therapy has been around for centuries. However, it is now just coming to the forefront where people are learning more about it. So do you want to define what light therapy is in your eyes, and then how you dove into that facet?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's several different ways of thinking about light therapy. The basics, which date back several thousands of years, you could go back to ancient Greece or India, was simply using different colored lights to treat the body. And people happened to notice that there was a physiological or emotional response. It made people feel better. And then as light therapy progressed in with modern electronics, different frequencies of energy, light therapy was combined with sound. We began to get the ability to measure the physiological response. And it was noticed that indeed, when you put specific wavelengths onto the skin, or you can irradiate blood with different wavelengths of light, there's going to be a physiological response. Interestingly enough, 25 years ago, light therapy was thought of as being quackery, that there was no scientific basis for it. But now, with more than 5,000 clinical studies that are published, we know exactly what happens. So with traditional light therapy, you stimulate the skin with a specific wavelength of light. Now, this could be in the infrared band. 850 nanometers is a popular wavelength because it turns on mitochondrial function. 630, 660 nanometers in the visible band is also very well researched for its ability to turn on collagen production. And then light therapy is even used in the UV band. So for example, people can go out in the sun. Men specifically can stimulate the androgen receptors on their trapezius muscles and elevate testosterone, in addition to elevating vitamin D. So we can quantify today the physiological response to light therapy. What the way that LifeWave does it that's different is that we modulate the light. This is a technique that has been very well known in laser communications, where infrared light is used as a carrier wave, and then that light is modulated to contain information. So we can speak over a beam of light. With my invention with LifeWave, we modulate the light, but in this particular case, we use it to turn on a specific physiological response. So as an example, if we wanted to elevate the body's master antioxidant, glutathione, we stimulate the body with light, and then the light contains the information to activate the receptor that manufactures glutathione in the body.
Let's circle back to LifeWave and how you actually were confronted or it was brought to your attention. I know that a lot of individuals have spoken, especially like Renita, talking about the fact of getting connected and contacted by the Navy SEALs. Now, it's been in the forefront the last X amount of years. However, you actually invented this a while back and clearly created some tweaks along the way. So let's talk about how you created and why you created the patch.
Sure. It started in the 1990s. And the late 1990s, I had been developing survival equipment for the U.S. Navy through government contractors. And specifically, I was doing work for General Dynamics Electric Boat and Newport News Shipbuilding. And my team was developing emergency power generation equipment, emergency oxygen supplies. I had invented a number of new ways to generate power for rescue radios. And one of the devices I invented was supposed to be impossible to create. So I was asked to be part of a design team for a mini sub. And in this case, the mini sub was attaching to the Virginia class submarine, which is they have vertical launch missile tubes for cruise missiles. But in this case, there was going to be a crew of Navy SEALs on this mini sub, and the goal was to see if I could find a method for improving their survivability. The crew would be going on missions that would be extremely long, 30 hours, 60 hours. So I thought maybe I can find a way to keep them awake without having to resort to caffeine or amphetamines. So the basic idea become since we have more energy that we derive from burning fat than carbohydrates, if we could turn on beta oxidation in the cell and increase fat burning, this would be a way of improving their total amount of energy and perhaps keeping them awake longer. And so I developed it under that context. Around that same time was 9/11, and the military and contractors were interested in weapons systems. So I decided to take the technology public and started LifeWave in 2002.
Wow. You know, and when Renita and I had a conversation in regards to LifeWave, she brought up the Navy SEALs. And to make a long story short, when COVID hit, I wanted something for myself to make sure that I could push myself, find that red line. So I was able to do different crucibles with some of the retired Navy SEALs. And their focus, their resilience, all of those different components, and to find something for them so that they don't have to take, like you had said, ephedrine, caffeine, all of those different components is huge because they are machines. I mean, they literally are, and they were put into that position. They chose that position, but God also put them in that position to make sure that we have strong individuals that are resilient. But at the same point, they also need different ways to make sure that they're restoring not only their mind, their body, and then again, leading into their stem cells as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we owe an incredible debt of gratitude to the fine men and women of our armed services that protect our liberties and freedoms each and every day. And most people have no idea how harsh the training is and the commitment for them to do it is what that they do. So we'll take this opportunity to express our thanks and appreciation for the liberties that we have because of our armed services.
100%. You know, David, we're going to go into a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about defining the different forms of energy, but then also talking about 5G and how it impacts our bodies as well. So we'll be back here shortly on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We are here with David Schmidt, and we are talking about light. We are talking about energy, frequency, and the different sciences that come into play. And you don't know what you don't know until you know. And that's really what it comes down to. When we look at the health and wellness industry, it has become such a push towards pharmaceuticals. And it's important to understand that there are different ways to win when it comes to your health. So I want to talk about a lot of different things with you, David, but there's one thing that I really want to hit right now is I'm curious in regards to how is the human body impacted by external frequencies when we're looking at all of the different 5G towers and all of the different buildings and stuff too that they are, putting up right now. I know I'm extremely sensitive if I'm in front of my cell phone for a long period of time or sitting in front of my computer. So what does that look like when we're talking about frequencies and the impact on the body?
Okay, so I'm going to define the problem, but then also give people a practical solution that they can implement today that will make a difference on their health. So first, let's define the problem. It's important to know that research going back to the 1960s by Robert Becker demonstrated that the electrical properties of the body control the biochemistry. So we understand that when we have a thought to move our muscles, that those muscles will move, and that has to get translated into a release of biochemical energy into the muscle. We're using up ATP, and we're getting that ATP from food. That's through the Krebs cycle that we generate that energy. Now, as bioelectrical current goes through the nervous system, it generates electromagnetic fields at right angles. This is a basic principle in physics. So if we use something called a squid magnetometer, which is a superconducting coil to detect very minute magnetic fields, when we put that coil over the brain or the heart or even the hands, we will detect magnetic fields coming off of the human body. Human body obviously produces sound. We have infrared energy that's traveling through the body through very thin collagen fibers. In Eastern medicine, they call these meridians, and that's what acupuncture is based on. But scientifically, we know that there are these very thin threads of collagen fibers in the body that have electrolytes attached to them, and they have a propensity to conduct infrared energy. So our body has fiber optic cables using infrared light for communication. The DNA gives off highly coherent pulses of light. These are known as biophotons. And these coherent pulses of light initiate thousands of different biochemical reactions within the cells. These are known as signal induction and signal transduction mechanisms. So it's what allows the cell to do what it does on the inside, and it also allows cells to communicate with one another. So this is to say that we are an entity that is controlled by different forms of energy, and that energy controls the biochemistry. So this is important because once we introduce something like 5G, which is a microwave, we should understand that this is going to have an impact, either positive or negative, on our bodies. So we go back to studies done at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. It showed even before 5G, going back to 3G, that microwaves would have a negative effect on our bodies. Specifically, holding a cell phone up to the head will create localized heating in the brain tissue. Now, this is approved by the government, and they say, well, the levels of radiation are so low that it's safe. However, further research has documented that this, in fact, is not the case, and people that live near microwave towers and high-tension electrical lines have a greater chance of developing cancer. So we should be very, very concerned about being bathed in these unnatural electromagnetic fields. Now, one of the ways that we can protect ourselves, since 5G is all around us today, is to increase our daily amount of copper. This is a little bit difficult to do in our diet. Rich sources of copper would include things like lobster and chocolate and wheatgrass. However, I would recommend that people take a copper supplement. I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not providing medical advice, but they could speak with their doctor about taking 2 or 4 milligrams per day of a copper glycinate. The copper will build up in the body, but it also gets stored in our skin. And our research has shown that if we can mobilize the copper and get it to bind to specific peptides such as GHK and AHK, that in fact our body has the God-created ability to act as a Faraday cage, screening out and reducing the impact of these artificial electromagnetic waves. So thankfully, we were created with the ability to deal with this.
Oh, absolutely. But I want to make sure that individuals, when David Schmidt is talking about chocolate, don't go out and buy a bunch of chocolate and consume that on a daily basis. I just want to throw that out. So my personal training clients don't come in tomorrow and say, hey, Mariah, well, I heard your show and David had suggested eating chocolate. Okay, let's talk about that. So we're going to take it out of first, put it in reverse for a hot second here. Now, in regards to the daily copper, but you also mentioned about peptides, the GHK. Let's talk about Dr. Pickard. You know, that's one individual that you have mentioned numerous times. Let's talk about the importance of copper peptides and breaking that down, because again, there's a lot of new things that are coming to the service. Unless you're actually looking for something, you know, we have to hear it. We have to see it. And then that's when we start connecting with different research that's out there. So let's talk about copper peptides and Dr. Pickard.
Yeah. So Lauren Pickard, who should win a Nobel Prize, discovered copper peptide back in the late 1960s, early 1970s, and devoted 45, 50 years of his life to studying this incredible, simple 3 amino acid peptide. It's GHK, which is glycine, histidine, lysine, and it has an affinity for binding with copper. Now, GHK on its own has metabolic effects in the body, but it will bind with copper and then have additional effects, which are rather remarkable. So first thing is, copper peptide shows that this is something natural in the human body that declines with age. And as we get over the age of 60, like many things, the levels of copper peptide have decreased by over 60%. Now, when we consider what this one single peptide does, it becomes a target when we're looking at potential ways to stop and reverse human aging. So, for example, copper peptide has been shown to mobilize stem cells in the body. And stem cells are, of course, basic cells that differentiate into healthy tissue. And every cell in our body was once a stem cell. Copper peptide will promote increases in the release of collagen from the fibroblast. So copper peptide takes place in wound healing. This peptide will also help to manage inflammatory stress. And this is an important part of healing. So in other words, when we experience an injury, we need oxidative stress at the injury site to bring down any potential bacterial infection. We need the inflammatory stress to tear down the damaged tissue. And then the inflammatory cytokines act as signaling molecules to bring in stem cells that are going to repair the damage. But if we don't have complete control over the inflammatory stress, which is called inflammaging as we get older, that means that we can have injuries, and instead of being an acute injury, it now becomes a chronic injury. So this is all to say a strategy that people can use quite effectively for as they age is have a healthy diet, get your rest, get plenty of exercise, hydrate, supplement with antioxidants, and look for methods to elevate your copper peptide to get better control over inflammation and better control over the way that you heal. So that's a start to that conversation.
Hey, it's
about
a great
copper
start.
peptide.
It's a great start. I want to talk about X39 when we come back. We're going to go into a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about X39 and the fact of reactivating stem cells, repairing DNA, because it's important for people to understand, you know, when we look at things that are available, when we look at a patch, people are going to be like, really? Does a patch do that? I want you to explain how and what they can expect from doing so. So we'll be back here shortly on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We are here with David Schmidt, the founder of LifeWave. And he is sharing a wealth of knowledge that we can all take little nuggets here and there. And I don't expect you to memorize everything. It's a good thing that we do have a playback so you can listen. It's kind of like a rinse and repeat. Sometimes we just have to do that. You know, David, we were talking about peptides prior to going into break. There's one question. Is it possible that activating this peptide could increase our built-in healing mechanisms?
That's actually what, in fact, does happen in the body. When we look at our ability to heal, it is essentially based on the availability of energy and the availability of information. So in our lab here that we have in Florida, the type of things that we look at are how can we stop human aging and how can we reverse human aging. And we use a number of different biological models for that. So we work with a flatworm called planaria. In the past, we've worked with hydractinia, lobsters, ants, and we look at their ability to defy what we would consider the normal aging process. And the ability to heal, the ability to regenerate, and the ability to defy aging is all based upon the same principles. And that is the capacity of our cells to make energy and the integrity of the information in those cells, which is expressed in the epigenetics of the cell. So in other words, very practical thing that people can do as they age to support healing would be to support the mechanism by which our body makes energy. That's the mitochondria. So again, it comes down to some pretty basic things about how we structure our diet, our exercise, our sleep, our hydration, supplementation, and then using technology like LifeWave to get results above and beyond those foundational elements. But absolutely, copper peptide will support healing as a general statement. And there's obviously a lot of
you got to be careful on how you word it. Yes,
parts of that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about LifeWave, and I want to talk about X39. So if you were talking to an individual and breaking down the science so that they have a better understanding of, you know, we can't expect everything is going to impact people differently. So when you look at different research studies, what are some of the studies that you've done on X39? Were they broken down into certain demographics, certain, you know, specific studies, but then also to how it impacts the body?
So over the past 20 years, we've performed over 80 clinical studies. And this has been traditional blood, urine, saliva work, but we also do a variety of different types of bioelectrical tests. So for example, heart rate variability. We want to know what is the effect on the heart and the autonomic nervous system. We'll do EEG tests. We want to look at what's the effect on the brain. We'll use different technologies like biopulsar and biowell, so we can get real-time bioelectrical feedback from all the different organs in the body. We'll do tests with infrared imaging, so we can see where the inflammation is in the body, and that way when we're applying our product, we can visibly see that the inflammation is being reduced over a period of time. So for X39, that research first started by doing blood tests. And we wanted to know when we apply the patch to the body, the patch is activated by a person's body heat. This will cause the patch to reflect and stimulate the skin with very low levels of light. This causes an increase in an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase in the body, which is part of the electron transport chain, part of how our body converts food over into energy. And this will in turn stimulate an increase in the peptide GHKCU. So we've done multiple studies now to show that within the first 24 hours of wearing the patch, we're getting a 30 to 40% increase in the body's levels of copper peptide. And within the first 24 hours, people notice an improvement in their energy, in the quality of sleep. Over a period of about 7 days, we start to see an improvement in people's cognition. Over a period of about 3 weeks, that can become pretty dramatic, along with other effects.
What I can say is with myself personally wearing the X39, For me, it feels like it's an armor. So like we had mentioned in regards to 5G and in regards to the different frequencies, I'm very stimulated and I'll get headaches, feel nauseous if I'm around a screen for too long of time frame. And that could be 15 minutes. It could be 30 minutes. I'm not sitting in front of it for 8 hours a day. But what I've noticed personally is that it feels like I have protected myself in regards to those frequencies where I'm not getting headaches. I don't feel nauseated in front of my phone, which is huge for me because clearly with work, our phone is one of the pieces of the puzzle or tools that we need to utilize. Same with computers. But, you know, I had an individual too who had just messaged me. He was curious in regards to the research with anything in regards to bulging discs or nerve pain. Have you seen anything with individuals who have used X39, what some of those results or different things that they may have experienced? I know it's not a one-size-fits-all. Everybody's body is the same, yet it's different. So have you seen something in regards to nerve pain? We'll just hit that one first and foremost.
Yeah, so we started work back in 2005 looking at how to use our technology for pain relief. And over this period of time, we've done 18 separate studies on using our technology for pain relief. For many years, this was two products. It was a product we have called IceWave, specifically for pain relief, and then another product called Eon, which acts as it triggers an increase in a peptide that's produced in the liver, which act as a broad spectrum anti-inflammatory. So again, all of these products work by stimulating the skin with light. In this particular case, we had done a study on osteoarthritis at a hospital in France called General de Santé. We did this with Dr. Pierre Volkmann, who's an expert in pain management in France. And we had seen that we were able to produce pain relief in 96% of the participants, and they experienced pain relief within 5 minutes. Pain relief can be as low as 50%, or it can be 100% of pain relief within just a few minutes. Nerve pain is a little bit trickier, depends on the individual, but we certainly have seen pain relief in cases of nerve pain. Back pain has been generally extremely easy to deal with. Sometimes it's as easy as applying an X39 patch to the back of the neck and then an Eon patch to the point of pain, and that works incredibly well.
So when you're talking about placement, let's talk about in regards to the body, why there are specific placements for the patches and the importance behind that.
So if we're looking for a systemic effect, so if someone is interested in using the patches like vitamins, it's something they're going to use every day to maintain and improve their health. The placement of the patch is less relevant. The general instructions that we provide, which are based on our clinical studies, are to apply the patch either behind the neck or below the belly button. And we see through blood and urine tests that this has a systemic effect. But in the case of pain relief, when there's an area of acute or chronic inflammation, what we found through practical experience is that applying the patch directly at the site of pain will produce a faster effect. So regardless of where you apply it, it's going to have an effect on the entire body. But in terms of the speed at which it works for pain relief, it's more effective at the site.
You know, I had an individual who I had spoken to in regards to the X39 patch, and she wanted to make sure that she had a control factor. She was having issues with TMJ, where she had so much pain in her jaw, and she reverted to trying Botox in regards to relieving some of that pain in her jaw. And she goes, I just want to wait 4 to 6 weeks to see what this feels like if some of the pain subsides. And I said, totally get it. I said, I'm all about control factors because you're not going to know what's working until, you buy that time through or that duration. And anyway, she ended up putting on the X39 after going through like 6 weeks of the Botox being within her system. She didn't see any pain, or she didn't see any relief of pain from the Botox, but she said within 3 days, the pain in her jaw had subsided. So, each individual, it goes to show that we're different. some people might notice something in 24 hours. Some people might notice something in 3 days, weeks, so on and so forth. So when an individual is looking at a product and they're looking at the X39, what is the best advice that you can say? Because everybody wants that instant fix, that instant gratification. And it's recognizing that just because it worked that way for her doesn't mean it's going to be a 3-day for you.
Yeah. And actually, I'm disappointed it didn't work within the first 3 minutes, because that would actually be a pretty typical story that we hear. Well, Mariah, this is not going to come as any surprise to you, but what I encourage people to do is first start with their foundation. Do evaluation of your life, and where are you at with your diet, the quality of your sleep? Are you committed to a program of exercise? Are you hydrating properly? Are you drinking too much coffee or consuming things that you shouldn't? Are you relying on pharmaceuticals? All of these things are important as a base. So, for example, one of the recommendations that I often give people is to make sure they're getting some olive oil in their daily life, as long as it's extra virgin olive oil. It has enormous longevity effects, and it acts as a broad spectrum anti-inflammatory. So there's things that we can do in our foundation of creating a proper diet, exercise, sleep program that will contribute to our overall health and wellness. And then when we're using tools like LifeWave, it will help take us to the next level. But if someone doesn't have a healthy diet, if they're not exercising, if they're getting 5 hours of sleep, we shouldn't expect that a product like LifeWave is going to fix all of these things. So I really want to encourage people to have a healthy lifestyle first, and then using a tool like the patch. Now, this all said, over the past 20 years, I've applied patches to well over 10,000 people, many people in their 60s, 70s, 80s who are not in good health, and we've seen incredible results, pain relief in 2 to 3 minutes of application. So these tools do work incredibly fast, but I don't want people to think that they can use the patch to replace a healthy lifestyle.
And I'm glad that you put that into play, because I think the mindset is instant gratification. It's this one thing that is going to it's going to fix everything. The reality is making a commitment to yourself is going to help assist with that, and then providing different tools along the way. So yes, proper nutrition, adequate sleep, all of those different things are going to aid in the assistance of reaching optimal health. And it doesn't matter what age you are currently at. You can always improve your health one step at a time, 1 degree. And it requires adding healthy habits, like Atomic Habits. I would highly recommend individuals read that book. It's literally step by step. So increments of change lead into higher levels of success. We're going to go into a quick break here. And then, David, when we come back, I want to talk about different things that you have in the pipeline. So we'll be back here shortly on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We are here with David Schmidt, founder of LifeWave, and so much more, because you know what? When you're looking at all the different patents that he holds, it floors me. And I love having conversations with individuals that it's like, okay, so what's next? And I know that you have that mindset, that you're a visionary, and that's great to be able to have a conversation with you today. Prior to going into what is next on David's plate, I want to make sure that we pinpoint the fact, when you're looking at LifeWave, when you're looking at X39, this is for all ages. It's non-transdermal, so I want to make sure that we recognize that you have zero concerns in regards to it conflicting with any medication that you're currently on. If you have questions, you can always talk to your pharmacist, so on and so forth. I know that's how we're programmed. That's how it's ingrained. But, I want to share a story. I put this on the X39 patch on my chicken. So it was standing on one leg. It was non-weight bearing, except for, like I said, the one leg. And I'm like, I'm going to try this. I'm hearing about people putting it on equine, on their dogs, so on and so forth. So I put it on my chicken. And good old Mabel, 24 hours later, was then weight bearing on both legs and is now walking. So I thought she was getting ready to go to pasture, but she's not. She's doing her thing. But then also, too, I have a lot of different clients, but one who is really, his goal is to be in the NHL. and he wore the patches for a week and a half and still wears them to this day. And the response that he had is, Mariah, every single time that I'm doing pull-ups, I'm PRing. My energy is higher. He does 2 to 3 workouts a day. He's like, my recovery, I'm not as sore as what I used to be. And he goes, my mental clarity is on point. So I just wanted to make sure that individuals understand that for athletes, for yourself, for your family, for your parents, that this is a wide demographic. So it's not pinholed into one potential need. So if you guys are interested in LifeWave, check out lifewave.com/define the fight. It's a great way for you to look. If you have any questions, you can also let me know. But I want you to share what you currently are working on and what people can look forward to in the future.
Well, I wish we had another hour together,
right?
Because we would need about that much time. But so I think a good place to start would be talking about what is the future of light therapy. And we've thought about light therapy as stimulating the skin. That's essentially what it's been for thousands of years. And new technology that we've been developing now in our labs has had the objective of using water as a carrier for light, so we can release light inside of the body. And the short story behind this was I was studying lobsters and trying to understand how lobsters could defy normal aging. When lobsters die, they're not dying of aging. They're dying because they can't grow any larger, or they're eaten by a predator, or they become sick. And so this ability to defy normal aging was of extraordinary interest. So when I was using them as a biological model, I went back to the Bible and to the story of Noah and the flood. And after the flood, God instructed Noah that now he could eat animals, but not to consume the blood, because that's where the life is. So I decided, since my belief is that the Bible is the inspired word of God, that we should take each word literally. And so in this particular case, I thought maybe there's something in blood that has not been discovered yet that could contribute to life and longevity. And in fact, what I found was that the blood of lobster would emit very specific wavelengths of light that we later tested to have some dramatic effects on human beings relative to longevity. The trick then became, well, how can we get this inside of the human body? So I created a technology to trap photons of light in resonant coherent domains between hydrogen and oxygen. So we have a method now to process water so that the water will contain this light. So when you drink the water, it releases the light into the body. In the future, and the light goes everywhere, and we can measure changes in bioelectrical equipment that someone is attached to in less than 15 seconds of someone drinking this water. But the light goes everywhere. In the future, we have a technology that we've developed that we're still working on, that we find very encouraging, is we will be able to have technology where people will be able to consume a health supplement, and the light will go to specific parts of the body. So if someone had a problem with their liver, we could release light into the liver specifically to cause regeneration of the liver. Or commonly heart disease. Someone now has heart disease, we could release light directly into the heart to trigger regeneration of the heart. So that's one of the big things that's coming in the future. And I would give credit to the Lord God for leaving those instructions in the Holy Bible.
Oh, I love the fact that you seek the information from God and literally go to his words. I want to thank you, David, for sharing all of your information, your insight, and your passion today on Define the Fight. And I honestly, I can't wait till October, because I look forward to meeting you in California. And it has been great. It has truly been an honor having you on the show today.
Oh, Pleasure is mine. Thank you, Mariah. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So if you guys are looking for information on LifeWave, go to lifewave.com/define the fight. And until you define the fight, how do you expect to win the fight? Have a great week. Until next week, we'll see you then.